Ukraine and Russia, two nations, inextricably linked by history, culture, and geography. Yet, their relationship has been marred by centuries of conflict and mistrust. To understand the current war, we must delve into the complex historical tapestry that binds these two Slavic nations. For centuries, Ukraine, a vast and fertile land, served as a bridge between Russia and Europe. It endured periods of rule under various empires, including the Mongols, the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth, and the Russian Empire. This tumultuous history sowed the seeds of division and fostered a distinct Ukrainian identity, separate from Russian dominance. The 20th century brought about unprecedented upheaval. After the fall of the Tsarist regime, Ukraine declared its independence in 1918. However, this newfound freedom was short-lived as Russia was unwilling to let Ukraine go. The Bolsheviks forcefully reincorporated Ukraine into the Soviet Union as the Ukrainian Soviet Socialist Republic, crushing any hopes of self-determination. Under Soviet rule, Ukraine faced unimaginable hardship. The Holodomor, a man-made famine engineered by Stalin's regime in the 1930s, decimated the Ukrainian population, killing millions. This tragedy left an indelible scar on the Ukrainian psyche, fueling resentment and distrust towards Moscow. Despite the hardships endured, the Ukrainian spirit remained unbroken. When the Soviet Union finally crumbled in 1991, Ukraine seized the opportunity to break free from Moscow's grip. A referendum held in December 1991 saw an overwhelming majority of Ukrainians vote for independence, marking a pivotal moment in their long struggle for self-determination. The fall of the Soviet Union did not bring an end to the tensions between Russia and Ukraine. The two nations remained locked in a geopolitical tug-of-war, with Russia seeking to maintain its influence over its former Soviet neighbor. The annexation of Crimea in 2014 marked a dangerous escalation in this conflict, setting the stage for the current war. Crimea, a peninsula jutting out into the Black Sea, holds immense strategic and symbolic significance for both Russia and Ukraine. Home to the Russian Black Sea Fleet's naval base in Sevastopol, Crimea provided Russia with a crucial foothold in the region. Furthermore, Crimea's historical ties to Russia, dating back to the Tsarist era, fueled Moscow's irredentist claims to the peninsula. In February 2014, following the Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity, which ousted pro-Russian President Viktor Yanukovych, Russia swiftly moved to seize control of Crimea. Masked Russian troops without insignia fanned out across the peninsula, seizing key infrastructure and military installations. The world watched in disbelief as Russia, in violation of international law, annexed Crimea, following a hastily organized referendum, widely condemned as illegitimate. The annexation of Crimea sent shockwaves across the international community. Western nations condemned Russia's actions and imposed sanctions, but these measures proved insufficient to deter further aggression. Emboldened by its success in Crimea, Russia turned its attention toward the Donbas region in eastern Ukraine, where it provided support to pro-Russian separatists, igniting a simmering conflict that would serve as a prelude to the full-scale invasion of 2022. The annexation of Crimea marked a turning point in Russia-Ukraine relations. It shattered the illusion of peace and stability that had prevailed in Europe since the end of the Cold War. The world was now on notice. Vladimir Putin's Russia was willing to use military force to achieve its geopolitical objectives, and the rules-based international order was under threat. On February 24, 2022, the world watched in horror as Russia launched a full-scale invasion of Ukraine, marking the most significant military escalation in Europe since World War II. Russian tanks rolled across the border on multiple fronts, targeting key cities including Kyiv, Kharkiv, and Odessa, in a brazen assault on Ukrainian sovereignty. The invasion, which Putin attempted to justify as a special military operation aimed at demilitarizing and denazifying Ukraine, was met with widespread international condemnation. The Kremlin's propaganda machine went into overdrive, spreading disinformation and attempting to portray the invasion as a defensive measure against alleged NATO expansionism. However, these flimsy pretexts failed to convince the international community, which overwhelmingly recognized the invasion for what it was, an unprovoked act of aggression against a sovereign nation. The initial days of the invasion were marked by shock and disbelief. Russian forces, utilizing superior firepower, made rapid advances on multiple fronts, bombarding Ukrainian cities and military installations. Kyiv, the capital city, found itself under threat, as Russian troops attempted to encircle and capture the city. The situation appeared dire for Ukraine, with many analysts predicting a swift Russian victory. However, the Ukrainian people, led by their defiant President Volodymyr Zelensky, refused to capitulate. Ordinary citizens took up arms, joining the ranks of the Ukrainian military and territorial defense units, determined to defend their homeland against Russian aggression. The world watched in awe as ordinary Ukrainians, armed with determination and Molotov cocktails, stood up to the might of the Russian military, defying expectations and inspiring the world with their courage and resilience. As Russian forces closed in on Kiev, the Ukrainian capital braced for what seemed like an inevitable siege. The world held its breath, expecting the city to fall within days, if not hours. However, the Ukrainian people, led by their resolute president, Volodymyr Zelensky, refused to yield. They mounted a fierce defense, transforming their city into a labyrinth of resistance. Ukrainian and foreign fighters, armed with anti-tank missiles and fueled by unwavering determination, inflicted heavy casualties on the advancing Russian columns. Images of destroyed Russian tanks and armored vehicles littered the streets, bearing testament to the ferocity of the Ukrainian defense. The Ghost of Kyiv, a mythical Ukrainian fighter ace credited with downing numerous Russian aircraft, became a symbol of Ukrainian resistance, embodying their indomitable spirit. Despite possessing superior firepower and numerical advantage, the Russian military appeared bogged down, hampered by logistical issues, low morale, and fierce Ukrainian resistance. Their advance on Kiev stalled, and their plans for a swift victory were thwarted. The Kremlin's intelligence had grossly underestimated the strength of Ukrainian resistance and the willingness of the international community to support Ukraine. After weeks of intense fighting, the Russian military, facing mounting losses and logistical challenges, made the strategic decision to withdraw from the Kiev region, shifting their focus towards the eastern Donbas region. While the retreat from Kiev marked a significant victory for Ukraine, it came at a heavy price. The capital and its surrounding areas lay in ruins, scarred by the ravages of war, a grim reminder of the human cost of conflict. The conflict has dragged on for months, with neither side gaining a decisive advantage. Both Ukraine and Russia have dug in, resulting in a grueling war of attrition. The daily toll on soldiers and civilians alike is staggering, and the humanitarian crisis continues to deepen. Each side remains resolute, unwilling to back down, which only prolongs the suffering. As the world watches, the question on everyone's mind is, how much longer can this go on? The conflict has caused significant economic disruptions, not only within the borders of Russia and Ukraine but across the globe. Supply chains have been strained, energy prices have surged, and global markets have been left in a state of uncertainty. Nations are reassessing their geopolitical alliances, and new power dynamics are emerging as a result of this ongoing conflict. In recent months, there have been various attempts to establish a ceasefire between the warring parties. Diplomatic efforts have intensified, with international mediators stepping in to broker peace talks. While some progress has been made, achieving a lasting ceasefire remains a complex and challenging task. Throughout the conflict, both Russia and Ukraine have received substantial financial and military aid from their respective allies. This support has been crucial in sustaining their efforts and has had a significant impact on the dynamics of the war. The international community continues to play a pivotal role in providing the necessary resources to both sides. As the conflict drags on, the path to peace and reconstruction appears long and arduous. Efforts to rebuild war-torn regions will require immense resources and international cooperation. The hope for a peaceful resolution remains, but it will take time, dedication, and a concerted effort from all parties involved to achieve lasting peace and stability in the region.